they're sleeping together, they're hanging out every day, they may even live together at times, and then it's like, oh no, we're not really together. And then in terms of like when people actually do tie the knot or jump the broom or go to city hall or say their vows in front of a pastor, it seems to be something that's temporary, not till death do us part anymore. It seems to be until circumstances get rough, until I don't like you anymore, until my emotions get involved. It used to be, I think, a lot less emotional for things. It was more so I have a responsibility or a duty. I have a commitment that I've made. So
Mm.
that's
Yeah, very, very true, very true. And I'm sorry, what was it to me?
it means nothing.
Oh, to you, being a wife means nothing as far as what society is saying. Maybe some people look at it like that, unfortunately, and that's some of the reason why we have to make sure that we get things back on track and get things back to where being a wife held weight. Being a husband, being a wife used to hold a lot more weight. Now everybody has different reasons to say why it's not as important. But it used to hold a lot of weight. It used to be something. Um, I know for me, and I kind of was raised in an old school environment. In all honesty, which I'm thankful for and grateful for, I realize every day kind of how interesting like stuff was already around me, and how stuff that was normal for me really probably wasn't normal for others. But I looked forward to becoming a husband. Like it was actually a big deal for me to one day be able to say I was a husband. I looked forward to having a wife. It was like a huge honor, and is a huge honor to have Amma as my wife. And like I guess like it wasn't a big, it was already when we were growing up. I guess it wasn't really, it was already becoming something that wasn't a big deal. Like when I think about it, especially even how they flipped the stuff, because I've talked about before how, um, you know, um, our, like I used to hang around a lot of, at one point I was a token in high school, and I would hang around, even though I hung around my own people when I would be in the neighborhood or whatever, which looks a lot different now than what it used to. But when I was growing up, or I'm sorry, when I was like in high school and I would go out, a lot of the people were white children, and some of them had more, a lot of them had a lot of money because I went to a pretty decent school, and I never even thought about it. I've talked about this before until I got older. I never even recognized that, oh, like a lot of the people that I'm hanging around with, these guys, they don't even have their fathers, but they never thought to once be like, oh yeah, I'm fatherless or this and that or whatever, which maybe they should have. But at the same time, just saying like I never realized how much everybody was hanging around until I got older. Really, you weren't with fathers. People were already sleeping with each other. It was a big deal. People were talking about how they were going to lose their virginity. They would start playing games, and I would go and I'd listen to games, and they'd spin the bottle or do something like that, and or truth or dare, and all of a sudden it'd be like, okay, who'd you lose your virginity to? Did you sleep with somebody? Yada yada yada. And I was like, kind of flabbergasted. Like I was kind of like, I never really. It was surprising to me to see those things. Um, so for me, it was always interesting. And my mother, she was a person that from 6 years old, she was always like, "Don't bring a girl into my house unless she's your wife." Didn't even know what that meant, but I was like, okay, if that's what Mama says, I guess that's what it's supposed to be. Um, wish I had more training on some of the husband wife stuff too, but that was something that she always said. So like for me, it was always something that I felt like you were supposed to honor. Nowadays, people talk about it as if it's something that is not a badge of honor, which I thought it was, but they'll talk about it now. It's a burden. Don't get married. It's going to trap you. It's a legal obligation. All these things. And it's like, well, what are you? So, what are the points of these relationships? Like, I guess these relationships are just only to sleep around with, and if you get a child out of it, I guess that's a bonus. Like, it's
I
very
think people just don't
odd.
know. Like actually, when we were getting married, I had someone ask me, "So why are you even getting married?"
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was like, so we can start a family and all that. And they were like, but you can start a family without getting married. And I didn't really have an answer for them.
Hmm.
Now my answer would be completely different, um, about why you get married and, what that means for your society, your community, your people, yourself, and your family, because it's much bigger than you and the other person. Is way bigger than that. But these days, like, people just don't have enough respect for the people just don't have enough respect for the relationship. I was there's a site called Quora. It's like Reddit online,
Hmm.
and there was a comment on there about a woman saying she's told her husband her needs several times, but he doesn't meet her needs. And the response was from a man who had just recently lost his wife, his wife left him for another man after 3 months. Because I mean, I don't know the whole story. It probably was longer than 3 months, but he says that she left him after 3 months because every time she would ask him to spend time with her, he had something better to do. He was spending time with his friends. He was going to play golf. He was going to do whatever,
Mm.
not paying attention to her. And I suppose some other man was paying attention to her during that time, and so she was like really insisting that he pay attention to her. And so she left him for the other man. Um, and the thing that stands out to me the most is like, if it really was 3 months, these people, he said they were married for 10 years. After 3 months of hard time, like, or like not getting attention, like you decide, I'm just gonna end a 10-year marriage. I mean, there had to have been other things going on that were just
Hmm.
unsettling to her. But if it really was as shallow as 3 months and he's not giving me the attention I want, then I don't know what to say for people. Like, you think that a union like that would be something that's more permanent than 3 months or something. I mean, 3 months is such a temporary time.
Yeah, yeah, and more than likely, um, and more than likely, and yes, my wife is beautiful. Thank you for the compliment.
Oh, thank you. I
um,
didn't see that.
usually, like with stuff like that, like you said, it doesn't happen last minute. But the development of it, like, but even being in it now, I'm not saying this is what we should be in, right? We shouldn't be in marriages or relationships that are like terrible towards us, right? And some of the things we saw our parents and grandparents go through basically with them just kind of hanging in there no matter how bad stuff got. So we shouldn't be in anything like that either, which is why we need to be pre-qualified for marriage. But it used to be a staple. It used to be something where it was like, if y'all got married, it was pretty much like it was gonna have to be some really rough stuff to get you guys to be apart. Um, and that was the mindset. Now the mindset is just, check off a couple things on the list. Getting married is more so nowadays even about just, oh yeah, we made sure that, we checked off a box, like, I got to wear the white dress.
Mm.
I got to walk down with the homies, we got to go, or
Homes.
like, I mean, that's kind of how it's treated. We got to have this, the ceremony is holds just as much weight now as
More.
I mean, I'm trying not to say after party. What is the term? Because that's what
The
some
honeymoon.
people treat it. No, no, no. The ceremony, and then you have the reception. Like the
Oh yeah.
reception gets more play sometimes than the ceremony. And then like the reception happens, and then after that, yeah, let me say we got our honeymoon in. Like that's extremely important, and a lot of it doesn't necessarily have to do with marriage. It used to, I'm not saying once again it should be, but I'm saying, you know it used to be okay not to have a honeymoon, and let's have some land.
Mm.
Like it used to be okay that we're doing this for our community. It used to be okay, we're gonna have as many children as possible as a community,
Mm.
and everybody in the children was gonna community was going to pour in. And now it's become, these are all curse words.
Oh yeah.
Work together, stay in your lane, provide for your wife. Well, if I provide for my wife, then she needs to make sure that she gives me da 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 da. No, no, bro. provide for your wife. Well, if I'm gonna make sure I do this at home for my husband, then he better blah 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 because okay. But like it's a badge of honor. It's okay. I'm not saying that you can't have a job. I'm not saying that the man can't be a stay-at-home dad if that's what y'all decide. Whatever you guys do is what you guys do. But what I'm saying is like the man's ultimate responsibility should be to have a work and to provide security and to provide vision and to establish environment. And a lady in our queen's number one job, I mean, excuse me, her number one work should be should come out of her feeling secure. She should be able to be, and these are terms that you've taught me, right? To be divine in nature and not have to always be strong, to feel
Strong or
loved, to
struggling.
or yeah, to not feel appreciated. I mean, I'm sorry, to feel appreciated. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
women don't feel appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse my language. Let me make sure we speak. My wife is very big on making sure I speak speak exactly what I mean, right? But these are things. Sorry, I even said but. See, I speak exactly what I mean, and these are things that we are. We have to we should be honest about as far as like like where we've decided to leave a lot of this stuff behind. These used to be words that everybody aspired to be. It used to be words like to be secure, even though we didn't use that term, but really like we were saying for our mothers to feel secure, our grandmothers to feel secure. That was extremely important. For our fathers to feel heard, for dad to like I remember to this day, like I remember didn't really like dinner, but I remember like I like to eat at the not dinner, but I didn't like the fact like I felt like it was kind of empty, and we would sit at the table. I really like sitting at the table. When my father would come home though, and he was actually able to eat with us, it was like one of the best things for me in the world. Like dad was at the table, and the person who was always busy, was always tired, was always doing like I get, or even just to sit down with dad and watch a football game, like that got to be dad's thing. Why? Because he was doing what dad was supposed to do. So it wasn't even a question like, hey, mom will give him that. Like the football game comes on, he was a big Dallas Cowboy fan. And so it was like, okay, Dallas is playing whomever. Like you had to just be like, okay, dad, like you get to be this gets to be your remote, your time, whatever. And either we gonna participate in what you're doing or not, right? And mom during the week and everything, mom laid down the law. And if we ever did anything, and I was a knucklehead sometimes, so if I ever did anything that disrespected mom, dad was gonna come in and do and give me a little something to remind me that not to mess with his wife and not to mess with my mom. And they were very. And my mom had a job. Even with him working 2.5 jobs until she couldn't work anymore, she wanted to make sure that back then they say I want to have some spending money or something like that, right? But she made sure she had stuff that was her own. So so I guess that was their thing that, and my dad really didn't care, but I guess she just wanted to feel like, hey, I got mine. I don't have to ask you. So she had like a little, not, I think she might have even worked full time at one point, but she was working in, what is that place in, not Alexandria, where, where my sister used to work, or where we went to meet her
Oh,
at.
Old Town?
Yeah, she used to have a place, office over there, and she was the secretary. And I came over there a couple times with her, or whatever. She's actually the first person that taught me how to type, and she was typing still back on the typewriter. And basically, she did a little secretary work, and like, but both of their positions when they came home, they were both very protected. Like my father felt like everybody in the house knew, like this is dad's arena. Everybody in the house knew this is mom's arena, and they wore it as a badge of honor, and it was
So
an honor to be around it.
they were secure in their roles, like they knew their roles, and the
Yeah.
children knew their roles, and it
Yes.
wasn't like
Yeah.
a lot of confusion around. Okay, you're a child, I'm an adult. This is what I do, and this is what you do. This is what
Mm-hmm.
I can say. This is what you can say. Um, yeah, it was like I was raised where children. Well, I was told that children should be seen and not heard unless they're spoken to,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a whole like you were just on different levels in terms of being an adult and being a child.
Mm-hmm.
But like these days, it's it's just a lot of confusion around relationships. Period. People don't know how to communicate. They don't know their role. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing, who they're supposed to be doing it with, and when
Mm-hmm.
they're supposed to be doing it. They don't know what they are. Like there's like a lot of discussion as to what I am, what my pronouns are, like all these discussions that wouldn't necessarily happen, and it just seems like a lot of confusion for no good reason, especially for children who were really young, like growing up, and having to ask questions like, "Mom, why is this on TV? Why why
Mm,
does my family look like this and this family looks like that?" Like
mm,
even with like, um, I grew up in a single mother household. Um, my my mother and father had, they kind of broke up when I was 8. So I didn't know what it looked like to have a man in the household growing up. So even looking at TV, it was like, why does this household look different from my household?
mm.
I'm still to this day confused as to what a man should act like. I get irritated um, when I when it when you do something that is, I guess, typical male, but to me it doesn't compute as, oh, this is what a man would do, because I didn't see that growing up. I didn't see, like, what shocked me the most about you, the amount of food that you can eat. When we first got together, I was like, we're never gonna have leftovers, are we? But
What? Okay. I think I
because
do
I wasn't
remember. You
used
know
to
what?
it,
I think I remember you saying something like that. Actually, now that you say that,
I wasn't used to the appetite of a grown
back in
man,
Northwest,
like
yeah.
at home. Because when you're at home, when people are at home, they, are more relaxed. When you're like going out, you go to restaurants and people have their best manners on and all that kind of stuff, and they act like they're not hungry, but then when they get home, they eat.
Oh no, I used to tell you I think I used to say it to everybody, but especially like when we first talked on the phone or when, well, you know what? No, because the first time we did anything was what, July 4th, right? So I don't even know the first time we would have. I guess we went to a restaurant together, possibly. Maybe the chicken place, the Polio
Oh,
chicken place,
Peruvian.
probably was the first place that we went. As far as actually going to a restaurant, I can't remember the first restaurant we did. I know that's one of, because I think your mom went with us.
I mean, I know this is tangent, but like,
So,
you told me your favorite food was macaroni and cheese. I made you a
oh yeah,
pan of mac. I made him a huge casserole
this is
pan
this is true
of
story. Yeah,
macaroni and cheese,
most of.
and I thought he was gonna share with his friends, because I can't eat cheese, so I just made it for him
See,
because he
first
said
of
he
all,
liked
see,
it.
so let's talk about husband wife stuff and man woman stuff, right? Like real talk, okay? Like brothers, I don't know how many brothers are on tonight or whatever. I'm not even looking at. In all honesty, forgive me, I haven't been looking at the numbers and stuff. It's a little further away from my vision than I normally would have it. But uh, um, when your wife makes your favorite, right? It's kind of like it's kind of like when you it's kind of like when you go to the barbecue and like somebody not supposed to make your man a plate type thing, and if they do, like it's kind of off putting, especially if that person ain't got nobody that they with or whatever. Like if my wife makes me something that's my favorite, then I'm not sharing it with anybody. Like I'm not even sharing it if I can. If I can, I'm not sharing it with my own children.
I was Wow, I
I'm
was
just keeping it
shocked.
100. So
I know
yeah.
this is a tangent, but I was extremely, hold on,
No,
get
I'm
some
all right.
water.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, I was shocked because I was like, "It's a casserole pan full of macaroni. Aren't you gonna share with your friends?" He was like, "What friends?" I was like, "Pastor." Anyhow, back to
Especially if somebody can cook. If somebody can cook, like they when they make something or whatever, why you going? I'm just saying, if there's, a lot of brothers on here get like if you making something that's my favorite, like you don't need to worry about anybody else happening. That's like somebody making me a plate or something. Like it's a very, I don't know. But anyways, I forgot what we were talking
we were
about.
talking about the meaning of different things, different words, and different
Yeah, but we were talking about
ideas
specific.
changing. We were talking about hmm,
See,
the roles being clear, um,
okay, yeah, and
in
then
a household.
you had said something about. Oh, you said okay. It started because you said that you thought like okay, you didn't been around a man, and one thing that was surprised you said was surprising to me that you ate as much as you do. Oh, and then that's what I was talking about before. So yeah, so the rest so But I was gonna say, like, basically, like, I think I've always told everybody pretty much, if you eat with me, like, I'm just gonna be real with you. Like, I'm not a clean eater per se.
Oh no, I mean
I think,
I think you're fine eating. I
but I'm
just
just saying, like, I'm not somebody who's trying to, like, make sure pinkies up and all that stuff, and make sure that I sip this with the spoon, with the what is it, the second or the third spoon that would be at the table or whatever. Like, when it's time to eat, it's time to eat. So. But yeah, but no, but yeah, but I get, and there's so many different things though, and I think it goes that words used to mean one thing and they become something else. You words used to mean one thing and it becomes something else completely. Even the word family.
mm,
And I think we were talking a little bit about this in one of the lives where we were talking about it kind of became a series within a series. We were talking about genocide for a while, and we talked about genocide physically, but then the next time we talked about genocide as far as it starts, in the spirit, or it starts with the words, or it starts with the culture,
mm,
and you kill certain things off. And one of the things that's under attack now is family. I know back, when I talk to people, and I've been blessed to be able to talk to some people that can remember in my life, they can remember the 19, like when I say 1900s, I mean 1900 something, can remember 1920 something, can remember 1940 something, 60s, etc. Like I've been blessed in my life to be able to meet, and sometimes even with technology, you can listen to people who lived in the time of the Civil War and hear them, or obviously we can listen to what they wrote out, and the idea of family has been completely turned on its head in a matter of really, as wild as it's going to sound to some, like I'd say since 2000,
mm.
it's almost a completely different ball. And I use 2000 because it's an easy demarcation. You have Y2K, all that stuff going on. But also, for me personally, I actually graduated high school in 2000. So my little brother, um, which if somehow, some way he sees this, shout out to you. Hopefully you're doing well where you are. He is basically 12 and a half years my junior. So when he told me some of the stuff that was going on in the same high school I went to, I was I like was flabbergasted. I couldn't even believe, like, I heard people, like, and I'm talking about stuff that would happen sexually and hallways and things like that, right? Like stuff that people weren't trying to hide.
Mm.
And I was like, look, people were foolish, did stupid, you did stupid stuff. You heard people doing stuff like going under bleachers and blah blah and
Yeah,
do
yeah.
little stuff or whatever. And I'm not talking about full out sex, but messing around. I don't know what base would be, second base, third base, something like that, whatever. You heard stuff about that. I wasn't one of the participants in it, but I heard stuff about it, whatever. You knew what was going on, but some of the same stuff. And it's like, but when you look at it, the family roles have a huge part to do with it. In 2000, we still had some semblance of family. It was breaking down a lot more. Because remember, even up to the 1980s, over 50% of our households still had mothers and fathers married with each other, not just living together. I'm talking about 50% of our families were still married, even when people try to tell you that it's always been a bad thing for us, a bad place, a disrespect thing, we haven't been in position, etc. Right? It was still 50% of us were still had strong marriages, no matter what, right? Um, it wasn't just good times in the 70s and all that. Like, we made it to the 80s, then the crack epidemic in America, at least, was one of the biggest things. And eventually, you had similar things, of course, happening in places like England and France and other places too in our neighborhoods. And then you still had apartheid actually still going on. Remember, South Africa is not even free, even though it never really truly was free. But if you want to say, in a sense, it was never free, with, at least whether you like him or not, Nelson Mandela being the president. That doesn't even happen until 1992, which in America, that's the same year that they finally say, oh, okay, we'll just go ahead, we'll finally celebrate Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday all over. Right? So we still have a bunch of stuff going on. But 2000 for me, and like I said, it could be me personally, because when I look back at it, I realized, oh, wait a minute, there were a lot of people that were not growing up with fathers. Like, I was blessed. I didn't think about it. And my mother, as much as she means the world to me and stuff, she kind of mentally, she basically had, I guess, because of the way the MS messed with her, you could say she had like Alzheimer's of a sense, of a
Mm.
sort, and stopped remembering us in a certain way. So she kind of, we still looked after her best we could. And then eventually, because of the Alzheimer's part, we couldn't keep her at home anymore because we were actually scaring her. That's how bad it got,
Mm.
where she would, be afraid of us. So my father, seeing us, kind of being hurt by that, and her, being stressed by it, and not knowing what to do, he eventually, you know, put her in a nursing home, and that's probably one of the reasons why I had an affinity for the nursing home the way I do. But yeah, so, but, again, but I'm sorry, let me get back on track. But yeah, basically, he but I was a blessing, but I didn't realize that was that many people. But when I think back on it, I'm like, I don't want to name all my friends' names and stuff, but like, well, y'all don't know who these people are anyway, but I'll make up some of them be real, some be fake. But when I think back on, be like, yeah, Myron didn't have somebody, Aaron didn't have somebody, and James didn't have somebody, and blah blah. And like, I was, my babysitter, like, she had a bunch of children, but she wasn't married, and like, you know, my little brother, his babysitter, she didn't have anybody. And like, my friends, even the white friends, like, they didn't have anybody. Like, it was actually interesting when you'd have 2 or 3 fathers that actually showed up. It was like, wow, okay, yeah, like, but you didn't even think about it, but you looked up to these men. But I didn't think about the fact is because there weren't really that many men.
Yeah, that's true,
You know,
actually. Because I grew up in a pretty affluent area, um, and most of the children were of, their parents were divorced, either divorced or single parents, and they still had all the means. They had like nice houses and things like that, but they didn't have two parents living in a home. And some, didn't have their father, but they got child support, so they lived very well.
mm,
But it was always a stigma about black people being fatherless and single motherhood and baby daddy, and it became like this like curse word to be like, oh, that person's baby daddy. And now it's become um, more in vogue and style to just partner up with somebody, not actually have ever been married or even had a real relationship with them, to just get together with somebody and have a baby is kind of acceptable. This whole co-parenting um,
mm.
word is kind of new,
As if we
but
needed to co-parent, because co-parenting should have been when we were together.
yeah, exactly. Um, and all these nonsensical terms that don't really mean much, because on the surface it looks like, oh, these people are so peaceful and they get along. Meanwhile, they probably don't have much to do with each other, or they pretend for the sake of uh, outward appearances. Like, I just think of Gwyneth Paltrow talking about, oh, we're co-parenting and we're just so happy, blah 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 blah, and her husband. When I look over to her ex-husband, it seems like he's not happy with the whole situation at all. He, seems disappointed with the whole situation, and she's out there touting co-parenting, promoting this idea that if you want to be cool like me and you want to start a stupid name company like Goop, and pretend like your
I
life is
have
all
no clue.
great.
I have no clue what that even is.
She has a very trendy, expensive company called Goop that makes like products and different stuff like
It just
that.
overcharges a whole bunch of money for
Yeah,
business.
charges a whole bunch of money.
Okay.
Uses like slave labor, and
Mm.
take depletes resources in places, and makes stuff like cordyceps and different trendy um, superfoods and stuff available to white people at a ridiculous cost, and makes where the native people in that land can't afford them. So she takes advantage of people, starting with her own family, her own husband. She has children with him, but she makes it seem like, oh, I left my husband. I'm dating. I'm doing this, and we're co-parenting. We're having a great time. It's just so wonderful,
Mm.
to try to pretend like, getting divorced from somebody is like a walk in the park, and raising children with them is like somehow more fun to be away from them. Um, there's a whole lot of like weird nonsensical ideas that children and young adults are being fed, like, oh yeah, this is normal and it's gonna
Mm.
work out. And when it doesn't work out, people are disappointed because they're like, well, this other person made it seem like it would be fun, like it was gonna be
Mm.
whatever. But it's like, people used to say misery loves company, and don't do whatever your friends do, because if they jump off a bridge, you're gonna jump off a bridge. Li- you know be obedient.
Mm.
Obedience is better than sacrifice. That's the way I was raised. Like, don't look at the grass over there, because they're gonna always make it look greener. And then until you get over there and you're over there sulking with them, then everybody's pretends like they're happy over there.
Yeah.
I
Very
don't
true.
know, but
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, I'm just thinking about Facebook and how depressed, looking at
Yeah.
Facebook used to make me. Like most of the time, I can't even. I have to take breaks from Facebook because people put such almost like lies. Like it's like only the best of their lives they're putting out there, like they're living the best life possible. Meanwhile, they, could be living, pretty rough, but you see oh, I'm going on vacation here and I'm doing this and I just got married that. Like I remember just feeling so depressed, like, why is my life so whack? Like I have, what I think that takes to make someone happy. I have a car, a good job, blah blah blah. I got a place. Why am I not happy? I'm semi attractive. Why am I not happy? Why am I not getting the life that they're getting? And so I had to go away from Facebook for like a whole year where I just didn't look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's designed to be that way. It's because we once again we've changed these words. Like how we say all the time, it was fine, and then we had somebody break it down and make it define, and then we had them redefine us if we agreed with the redefinition. And like part of our goal, even in doing something like tonight, is to refine ourselves, to refine
Hmm.
our own language,
Yeah, like the notion of a friend. Like, what does that even mean these days? Because,
especially a Facebook friend.
like, I mean, a Facebook friend, you have to qualify a Facebook friend with the word Facebook in front of it because you know they're not your real friend. Anybody that has 1,000 friends,
The dangerous thing though is that the children come. I'm sorry to hit you in,
no,
but
go ahead.
the dangerous thing for the children to that's coming up with the children that are coming up now, they don't make a distinction.
Yeah.
Like if you have Facebook friends, like I mean, even think about people of our generation and people older than us, even the stuff that people are putting out in Facebook to make sure that everybody else sees what's going on,
Mm.
make sure everybody knows what's going on. Hey, everybody, I'm just posting. I'm posting this thing about me. You got it. I'm posting this thing about me. In the hospital with tubes up my nose and this and that, or I'm posting, hey, not, y'all pray for me, but I'm not going to tell you guys what to pray for, and I'm hoping out of 2,000 friends that maybe I'll get enough people to make me feel that people love me enough, and then only 20 people happen to catch it, and since only 20 people responded, then that means that nobody really cares, yada yada yada. And even in social media, like I don't think people recognize as much as we can use, like obviously we're very successful at using social media, what we're doing here for our community, but really social media is not, you all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Social media is not really designed for us. Like, believe it or not, social media is not designed, especially Facebook. That's one thing I've had to learn about Facebook, is Facebook is not really designed for people to actually check on you anymore. Like it might have been at one point, but it's become something where it's like, hey, like anything else social media, like, there are people that train, praise Yah that we have a formula that works, and I didn't really go through the training that everybody else did. I do read up on some stuff, but real talk, there are people that train and take courses now, take classes and get masters and doctorates in just how to use social media.
Mm.
Like that's how, like, social media is something that's supposed to be used in a manner to be able to get a point across, to get a business going, and do this, to do that. And people are trying to be social, like in real life. They're trying to create friendships and things to gravitate to. People aren't liking your stuff just because they're your friend on social media. They're
Mm.
gravitating to it because it's media to them. It's entertainment. That's
Social.
part of the thing. And some people like the entertainment when it makes them feel sad. Like I've done this in front of my wife before the other day. I forget what I was watching, but sometimes I go down a rabbit hole
Oh.
sometimes, and I'll be watching stuff that's funny. Sometimes I'll be watching stuff educational, but then every once in a while, I start seeing something sad. But it's like it makes you happy, but it makes you cry, and so like you just keep watching, watching and
Well,
watching,
social media
and
is
going down the thing.
manipulation. It's like it's just manipulation. It's all like contrived and fake, and it's manipulating. And sometimes people want, like you said, like want to be manipulated, and sometimes people don't realize they're being manipulated. And I think the dangerous part is when people don't realize they're being manipulated. Like
Mm.
especially people who are younger than us that grew up with this. This is normal to them. That
Yeah,
being
we just missed
social.
that. Yeah, we
Right,
just
being
missed that.
social means hopping on Instagram and looking at some Instagram hottie, and guys thinking that this is what a woman is supposed to look like, and women thinking that we should aspire to look like somebody who doesn't even look like that themselves.
Like, did you ever see the video where there was a guy? I mean, there's probably a few of them, but there was a guy who does a video, and or it starts off as like a stitch. It starts off with a girl, and she's flashing whatever. She's got clearly has like the huge eyelashes and full makeup and all this stuff. And the guy's like, "See, that's what I want, a woman like that. That's beautiful when she just gets out of bed."
Oh Lord.
He didn't know any better, but that's what like social media is. It's like when I was growing up, as much as people gonna laugh at me for this, but like when I was growing up as a little child, I didn't really I saw cartoons, but I didn't really understand it. Like milk didn't come from the grocery store, or apples didn't come from the grocery store. Like I knew somewhat, but I'm city child in the '80s. I know I hear more about how dope is moving than I'm hearing about how food is being made. Like, and I was pretty protected as far as like my parents, my grandmother, stuff like that. I was pretty protected for the area I lived in, but still, we were learning more about that. So I can only imagine like put that on steroids. I'm so happy that we are going the route we're going as far as homeschooling and stuff, because I can only imagine put that on steroids. The stuff that I was hearing in school, you know, um, in kindergarten or preschool, because I skipped kindergarten. Preschool, there's a girl trying to get me to play with her and trying to get us to play house, and being like I have to kiss her and stuff and have to hug on her too much and stuff, and not realizing whatever. Like I can only imagine. I dealt with a girl that if it wasn't for older guys messing with her, I've told my wife the story before, that like basically it was this girl that probably was going to. It was in high school and I was really tall, but I wasn't even in um, probably wasn't even in. No, probably wasn't even second grade yet. There's this girl in middle school, probably eighth grade, maybe ninth grade. I don't know. And she was probably going to, try and do something with me, And I didn't know any better what was going on. So, I didn't know any better what was going on and what was happening with that. And and if it wasn't for the last minute when some guys came by and started messing with her, and I kind of felt sad at the time, like, man, why they messing with her like this? And that was kind of mean. But then when I realized, getting older, like, oh, like she was low key pedophile. I guess they wouldn't call her technically that because she was only in eighth grade, but I mean that's what it was. Like basically she was about to mess with a little boy. So like, and who knows what happens to me spiritually, emotionally, physically, etc. when that happens to me. I never had that happen, but I can only imagine because I've heard stories from a lot of you who said you've gone through things and somebody messed with you or it came close, and you know, so yeah, it's there's just a lot of stuff, but it's so much stuff. I can only imagine what it is for children to be going through the school. So I can only imagine what it was. I remember the fear when I was in high school. I guess you probably, 'cause I don't think it was my senior year. You were 1 year ahead of me. I don't think it was my senior year, but I can only imagine because I remember, um, you know, we didn't know each other in high school, but I remember what it was in Alexandria and Fairfax County, and you were just a city over, really. I remember the Columbine shooting
Oh yeah, I remember
and
that.
everybody being freaked out, and me even just wearing clothes that at the time anybody could wear, but then the next day I wore those clothes and people were freaked out by it.
Well, it's like even like now, the term mass shooter doesn't mean what it used to mean.
mm,
Like it used, like we're so desensitized to things. Like
mm,
I remember when the word gay meant happy. I remember when there was a terrorist attack, that people be like, "Oh my gosh, 12 people got killed." Now a terrorist attack and like, "Oh, only 12 people got killed."
mm,
Mass shooting, like people kind of expect, like they were talking about children wearing I think Kevlar to school, like bulletproof vests, or that there would be um, armed police officers and armed teachers at schools,
mm,
and like these are types of ideas and notions that are like completely foreign to anybody who isn't in school right now. But like this is the reality that children are growing up in today, um, and we've let ourselves be desensitized mainly because our community is not speaking up about different things that we should be speaking up about, and letting the younger generations know what's right and what's wrong, or what's
mm,
what's righteous and what's evil. um a lot of us are, I mean, I'm probably not in our community, are like celebrating Pride Month and talking about it like it's like like it's acceptable in our community when it is not. It's not acceptable in our culture at all. Um, Talking about Black Lives Matter, like it's something that is our agenda when it's not. Like
Hmm.
just a whole lot of things that back in the day used to be corrected. I remember older people in the community would correct you. If you were out of line, you'd be
Yeah,
corrected. These
anybody,
days,
anybody
people
could
go to
correct you.
jail. Like a teacher can't even tell a child, "Oh, you can't do this and that. You can't do that."
Well, parents can't even tell the child. Children are calling 911. Like I never had this happen, but I was
Mm.
afraid because I had friends who tried to cut down 911 on their parents, and the parent dialed 911 and put the phone down and said, "Until they get here, I'm gonna whoop your tail." And one of them legit did it till the ambulance got there. And when the ambulance got there, they said, or not the ambulance, I'm sorry, the police got there. Then they said, yeah, like I spanked the child until you got here because they decided they were going to call 911 because they got here late. What you going to do? And the police officer turned around and left out. It was like laughing.
Mm.
And when we heard about it, we laughed because we were like, well, "What in the
Would you
world was
try?
wrong with you? Why would
Yeah,
you
would you
even
try?
do that?" You know. And I'm not saying we should be abusive, but what I'm trying to say is like, yo, like, yeah, it used to be acceptable to raise your child. Um, I was saying this earlier. I don't know if this is before we went on family day or after came coming back from family day trip. However, I was saying earlier, man, like I know my grandparents, right? Onita and Daisy would be furious. Like I was talking about one of them, Onita, she would be frustrated, be like, Kofi, like, why are you even like softening the blows on some of these words you saying? Like this is just not right. Like that used to be, it was not right. It used to be not right. Like it just wasn't right. My uncle, okay, I can't say the story now because I was about to, I'm talking about my family member, but yeah, like, okay, here's another one. There's another person. This is not family. There's another person who asked, one day was like, and you could tell clearly they were gay. All right, um, and and you could tell clearly that they were gay or whatever, right? It wasn't a secret from anybody. So they asked me a question one day, and they say, um, basically, what do you think about homosexuality?
Mm.
And I'm trying, because I know what they are. I'm trying to bounce around the subject and be like, well, and yeah, it's wrong, but the Bible says love, blah blah. And then they hit me with this. They go, the answer is it's wrong. And I'm like, looking at them because I'm like, but what they were saying is like, you have to do all that. Like I know I'm wrong.
You dancing around the
And
subject.
it's okay. Like it was okay to say. Like they were
Hmm.
basically letting me know, like, look, I'm coming to you knowing I'm wrong. Like, and I'm coming to you because but don't think that I don't know. Now it's a mental health issue because not just with that, I'm talking about across the board. People know they're doing stuff wrong, but we're supposed to find new terminology so we can accept it. It used to just be the answer is this is wrong. It
Hmm.
used to be the answer. You know what? I can't be faithful. I need to get myself together. I need to get counseling. I don't want to lose my wife. I don't lose my husband. I need to be better. That was if you cheated, you were wrong.
Mm.
Now, well, they even got sisters coming out. Now, well, the black man, he ain't never been faithful anyway. I mean, you got people legit,
Yeah, yeah. That's
you
what do
know.
they call it? Being what
You
is
talking about
it?
what, multiple wives?
Multiple partners. Period.
Um,
Poly, like not polygamy, but
well, polyamorous, you say?
polyamorous. Like they're not even in relationships anymore. It's just like no, no, no. I just want to sleep around, and that is considered acceptable.
And
Like,
when they do that, we were watching a couple of the things on I was about to say Key and Peele, huh?
mm,
Abba and Preach. And we watched a couple of their things and it was like very clear, like when they doing all that, they are not happy.
no, like
They are
people,
not happy.
it's so much deceit and so much people lying to themselves, so much cognitive dissonance. Like people say, "Oh yeah, it's so cool, it's so great." People aren't meant to be monogamous, but then it's never a relationship. I've never seen a relationship where the people in the relationship aren't monogamous and both people are happy with the setup. Most of the time, one of the person just has low people just have low self esteem and will go along with it in hopes that the person is going to choose them. But if someone doesn't have enough respect for you to say, yeah, I'm with you, then they're never going to have enough respect. And they're going to have less respect the longer you stay around, allowing them to not choose you, to have you, but not even choose you. Like, it's disgusting, but I mean, you can't blame somebody for taking advantage of a good situation. In terms of they get the quote unquote the milk that they don't have to buy the milk, they can get the milk for free, and now they're out
Yeah,
shopping
because they
for
got
another
the
cow.
cow.
They're out shopping for another cow. Like if someone says, like that was Music Soul Child song, "You ain't even got to be my girlfriend." He's not pressed for you, or she's not pressed for you. Please move on, because they never are going to be. They don't even have respect for you. Until you just move on. But I don't know who that was for. But if someone acting like they're not pressed from the beginning, they're not even trying to impress you. Wow, it's like, do you even really want that in your life? Answer is probably no. But if someone's talking about polyamorous and just like the Will and Jada
Mm.
Smith situation, clearly Will Smith feels cuckolded. He feels humiliated. Um, they've been saying that they're in this like open relationship. Meanwhile, Jada is out, laying, spreading it
Hmm.
everywhere,
And
and
telling everybody their sexual
yeah, and,
business
and
and stuff
saying
and all
that he's
things.
not good in bed and all sorts of stuff, and just basically
And you know
humiliating
what's
this man.
crazy? Like her, because her and Monique are both from B More, right?
Mm,
So like Monique in the open relationship and stuff too, and that's why like we got to be careful because it used to be back in the day. I'm not saying anything bad about Be More for a second. We know great people that live in Be More, but it Be More like or not Be More, but just in general, it used to be back in the day. You didn't just listen to anybody, even if they were a celebrity. You know, Charles Barkley. I talked about this on one of the Patreon videos. For Charles Barkley, they talked about him so bad back in the day because he said, "I'm not a role model." And while I disagree, I think that all of us should be role models.
mm,
I get what he was saying because he said it specifically in the commercial. You know, your parents should be your role model.
mm,
So, but back in the day, people weren't saying, it became maybe in the 50s and 60s, it really started getting big in this in the black community, especially. Well, in the black community, it's interesting. In the black community, it's so many of us that, so many things that we're misrepresented in or underrepresented in, that kind of was like anybody who did anything in the black community, we just started saying, see, look at so and so, even though that we probably shouldn't have done that. But in our community, it still wasn't as huge a deal to be like, oh, just because, she can sing a song means you need to act just like her. Just
mm,
because, you can do this. But now it's become where it be like them. But now the problem is now that we're okay with them being the role models, but forgive me, I don't be knowing everybody's names nowadays. What is it? Rich Roddy, is that his name? Or Roddy,
oh
the,
yeah,
the guy
yeah,
with the
yeah.
box? Or you talk about, the baby. You're talking about Lil Wayne. Like, these are not role, but everybody's just like, oh, they made money. Oh, they have a podcast now. Oh, they do this, and we don't study what's going on, and we're not even worried about like where the role models in our community. It used, even in times of, I don't want to go back too much because we shouldn't always just think about when we were prisoners of war and enslaved, or some people would even call us slaves, but most people want to talk about the enslaved or the mind of the prisoners of war. You know, but even in that time frame and coming right out of that, we saved up money and we were looking the community towards somebody that was we were willing to give that to.
Mm,
Like, because we were like, even if we only got one person, like, fine, let's all come together and be connected and make sure. And we were all, and see, it was different. Like, the community was the role model for the one person. So Frederick Douglass, if he gonna make it, it's gonna be because all of us are pushing for you, that all of
mm,
us are giving you love. And even if we're not as educated as you, we can show you love. Like, we can educate you on love. We can educate you on food. We can educate you on, that famous hairstyle you got. We're gonna teach you how to do your hair, whatever, right? Like,
yeah.
we can educate you on how to fight for yourself.
And then Frederick
You know?
Douglass looked back and started funding things. Once he got in position, he
Yeah.
looked back and started working
Hmm.
for his people, the ones who had pushed him up. Um, we had a sense of responsibility before.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, people don't even want to take accountability, responsibility for, you know, uh, what they do. Period. Like I was watching um, basically a sermon on abortion, and the girl, she kept it really real. She was like, "Stop letting people stick their dick in your vagina," and then a lot of these babies won't be made in the first place. Let's take some responsibility, take some accountability, stop opening your legs, stop sleeping around, and then there won't be a lot of these babies born, period, or a lot of these babies being made, period. You don't have to worry about, for the most part, 80-90% of the abortions would never have to take place if you could control yourself.
Even more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's one of the things, and my wife is on with me, so I'm speaking with a woman, right? I'm not just speaking, and people be like, "What do you know?" No, like I'm speaking with a woman who can correct me at any time, and of course, you guys are able to as well. I know we haven't been in the comments as much as we normally have, but we're just having conversation, and but yeah, like you can have, like people act like it's a huge amount of women. I'm not saying it's zero, right? Y'all hear me, right? I didn't say it's zero. However, we act like the percentage of women that get raped is is like 50% or something. We act like even if it's 10%, it's not even that. Um, so the amount of children, because that's what we're dealing with, not embryos, not
Mm-hmm.
fetuses, not
Mm-hmm.
things that don't have life yet, or we can't
Yeah.
constitute as life. Even though you're concerned, it's weird. We're concerned about every cell in your body and your gut health and how the bacteria in your body is being
Right.
used, but we're
Everybody talking
not.
about probiotics and
Right,
prebiotics,
but we don't
and
want.
they're alive.
they're alive, right? But your child's not alive. But sorry, let me not even cancel that out. We're talking about probiotics, but we're going to talk about the child. On top of that, um, we have this weird thing where it's like, oh yeah, all of the women that are looking for us because they're going to get raped. Well, no, that's not it. Well, what if these women don't want to have children? Why don't we hold people accountable for,
Well,
like? It's weird because in a sense, see, I'm not a Republican or Democrat, so this gets people weird at me. All right, I'm not saying I'm Republican on this. However, like if somebody says something that's real, somebody says something that's real. Why is it wrong for somebody to say that if you had sex with somebody and it was unprotected and you're pregnant, that they don't want to be a part, nor do they want their taxpayers to be a part of making sure
it's
that
not their
that
fault.
that that baby has to be killed? This is part of something that makes people upset. I'm saying that should be an honest part of the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, somebody will turn around and try to gaslight me and say something along the lines of, well, what about vasectomies, this and that? I promise you, I promise you that there is not any child on this earth that is here accidentally.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that, when you were talking about control, right? Let's have an adult conversation. I won't go too far, right? However, whether you want to talk about control, whether you want to talk about I'm not with a bunch of women, whether you want to talk about I can name, right? I can name the amount of like girlfriends, if you want to use that term, on a hand, right? Like my life is not about going out and do all these things. So yeah, I'm not worried about a vasectomy because I'm not out here. I'm gonna say the word. My wife was nice about it. I'm gonna just say I'm not out here sticking my dick in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I'm with my wife. My wife and I have sex, and that's it. I'm not worried about like one thing. I can promise y'all one thing. You're not gonna hear about Pastor Kofi is, hey, Kofi was out here. We found out that he got a baby. Blah blah blah. Blah. Like you will never find that out. Not about me, right?
Well, and like Cougar, like Empress said, people want to have action but don't want the reaction, and people don't look at the spiritual implications of their actions. They don't look at the generational curses that led them to the
Mm.
place where they are. Like people, especially believers, who say, "Well, what about if you were raped? What does you being raped have to do with becoming a murderer? What does that have to do with the situation? Is you having that abortion gonna make the rape go away? Is you know going through, or if someone is in that situation, is it gonna make them feel any better? No,
Is it gonna mean you're healthy?
no, it's not.
Because
And
abortion people, ladies that deal with abortions, they have a whole bunch of health issues
well,
that pop
yeah,
up later
health
on.
and trauma. Like there
Hmm.
was already the trauma from the rape. There's already trauma from the generational curse. Somebody somewhere in their family did something, and now they're living with incest, rape, all sorts of demonic type situations, and then they go back into, you know, instead of trying to break the generational curse with them, they decide they're gonna go into covenant with a demon,
Mm.
with Malak. Basically, they're gonna go get this abortion, and as soon as that baby's blood is spilt, they've gone into covenant with the demon, renewed their generational curse contract, and started it over for their family. They're not looking at the. It's like they're spiritually like our people are spiritually ignorant. We're trying to follow the world instead of looking
Mm.
at the spiritual warfare that's going on behind what's happening. All this talk about abortions and all this kind of stuff. I was listening to a prophetess today, Tiffany. I don't remember her last name. She was talking about how the Herod spirit, King Herod, tried to kill all the babies under the age of 2 because he wasn't trying to allow Yeshua HaMashiach to be
All the
born.
boys.
All the boys, all the baby boys under a certain age. And that same spirit has been unleashed on the earth. And people don't realize that all these things have spiritual implication. All these things
Well,
have
it's before Herod. Remember that's what happened with
Pharaoh.
with Pharaoh and
Mm-hmm.
Moses, and Ramses the second, I believe it is. He tried to repeat the process again, and that was what he spoke over his own son, and released it over his own child. So, Yahweh said in that instance, the very thing that you trying to speak over Yashtel is going to be the very thing that you actually going to speak over yourself. So, at that point, it's been released into a worldly system and a worldly government. It's something that a lot of people, if you study history, and our story too, right? But if you study his story, you'll discover that that's something that happens over and over and over again. A lot of kings and a lot of queens that just were afraid of somebody else or wanted to really just show some kind of power over somebody else or whatever. Yeah, they if they didn't outright wipe people out, then yeah, they might just kill all firstborn children.
Like another term that is like so prevalent these days that wasn't a thing. um but like it's like ironic, the hypocrisy of this term, cognitive dissonance. Everybody's talking about cognitive dissonance, but nobody's realizing, or a lot of people aren't realizing, the cognitive dissonance associated with a lot of the beliefs and ideas they're running around here with. Like, how we have Christian and quote unquote believers talking about pro-choice. How do we have someone talking about, I'm so happy I'm pregnant, I'm having a baby, and on the same hand, the same person talking about some, oh yeah, abortion is a good thing. Like, the cognitive dissonance is just like so like deafening. It's not even like, it's funny because it's not funny. It's funny like that someone can hold such crazy beliefs, like, you know, yeah, having a baby's good, but having an abortion is good. How can both be good? And at some point, people have to say, they're both good or they're both bad. Like, at some point, uh, it has to be okay to be out here just murdering whoever, because you can do abortions at any age. And in Virginia, there, like a couple of years ago, they were talking about making abortions up to the age of 2 legal. So basically, they have a baby running around this world at 2 years old, and then they decide, oh, we didn't want it. Or at what point does someone become a viable form of life? Or like, there's a huge argument about, well, they weren't viable form of life because they couldn't take care of themselves. You know how many middle-aged people out here running around who can't take care of themselves? like let's not make that the argument. Like, because we just be doing selective abortions on people all over the place of every age, if that were the case.
Yeah, well, it's a thing of like live your truth
Oh gosh.
too,
Oh my goodness.
and that's really what it is. Like if we were to do it, because people say, well, how do you do that? How do you come up with that? Well, people don't want to talk about truth. They talk about living your truth, but there can only be one. Just like we talk about all the time, there can only be one interpretation. There can be many applications. There can be one big construction, which is bigger than the interpretation, but there's only one interpretation. And so people are out here arguing for whatever they want. So if you can argue for whatever you want, right? Or even see, if I'm supposed to be able to say that I have my own truth, whatever I say is true, that I'm then me being this is how it works. Like whatever I say I want to be true is true. So if you tell me something and you are completely against what I say, then I can't be a good person if I don't support you in everything you say. Even if I don't believe anything you say, I still have to say what's your reality is reality and what's my reality is reality. So if I
But
say that I need to keep my baby, but you say
mm,
you don't need to keep, or let me reverse it. You say you need to keep your baby, and I say I don't need to keep my baby, then it's okay for us to support one another. And if we don't, so that's how you
let's
have
take a
somebody.
step back though, because these same people that are saying, um, I want to live my truth, you can live your truth, all this stuff, they don't even want to live in that world because that world becomes chaos. If everybody's living their own personal truth, there's going to be just mass chaos,
They
you
don't want
know.
to live in the world when it comes up, but they think that it's feasible. They think that it's actually something that's responsible. They actually believe that's mature, right?
Mm,
Like that's once again, not trying to bring up what we were talking about too much in the rising session, but that's
mm-hmm.
unconditional love. Like
No, gosh.
there's no conditions, right? Like you can do, like I'll do
There's
whatever
no
I want to
conditions
do.
until they want conditions. There's
There's
no
no
condition.
conditions until they're hurt.
Oh, exactly.
Like it's okay to have no condition, even if I know you could hurt me. Like the person's wielding a knife and stuff, and they're not trained, and they keep coming this close to my eyeball. However, like, oh, okay, but they haven't cut me yet. It's been 10 years, they haven't cut
So
me yet. It's been
so check
20
this
years, they
out.
haven't cut me yet.
Even saying I don't want conditions puts conditions on the other person to not have any conditions.
Yeah,
It's control. Like, how can you say I don't want conditions, but then you're forcing the other person to not have conditions if they want to deal with you? So even in that, it negates itself altogether. You can't have a world with no conditions because even putting saying I don't want conditions puts a condition.
yeah, I'm with you. I agree. And but once again, a lot of people are not necessarily trying to have that conversation. A lot of people are, or a lot of people think they've been taught it's mature
Oh,
that we
please.
should be able to do whatever we want, and everybody should be able to do whatever they want. And that's really Christianity in a nutshell, too. Is do whatever you want, like as we always say, sprinkle some Jesus on it. And once enough Jesus been sprinkled on it, it's like salt. It won't lose its savor. Except we're trying to figure out why are we having these GMO type effects because we're dealing in something that's not real. Like we've been taught to mix things, and once again, things that we know to be righteous, we decided that we will what's the word? I don't even know. Like I guess not even backstab is worse than backstab. Like we've been paid off almost.
Mm,
It's like we know that this is wrong, but there's a benefit, there's a privilege to going ahead and being doing what's wrong. So we'll continue to stay connected to the system. We know that like there's no way that anybody, even if you're LGBTQ plus, can deny that well, I don't know, that's kind of,
mm,
I was gonna say you can't deny it, but now people deny it. It used to be 40 years ago that two people wouldn't deny that. Hey, even if somebody's LGBTQ plus, they probably still would like both their parents to be involved in their lives.
mm,
Now those same people are saying, well, you know what? I'll just raise my child with another of my own kind, and they won't
mm,
get the mother father thing, or one of us will be more masculine, one of us will be more feminine, as if that does anything. By the way, even things like oxytocin that the baby would get from the mother and the father, even that is important. There's different types of oxytocin that the baby gets from the mother and the father. That's a spiritual principle manifesting itself into a physical manifestation. However, we're still not even thinking about that. Like just male and female, the baby needs to look you in the eye. The baby needs to smell a male and a female at certain times. Just like we need the sun, the baby needs the mother and the father physically.
mm,
Needs to hear the voices of both and not just get a masculine or feminine presence. These are things that are scientific, but once again, now science is beginning to change
yeah,
because
has to.
it has to. Yeah, it has to support the same system.
Has
Sorry.
to, yeah, match the narrative.
Yeah, it has to support the same system. So if it's not supporting that system, then we got to change it up. We have to make sure that it's changed up so that everybody can feel able to have comfort or comfortable, and we're not admitting. So here's some of the stuff that's very interesting that we're already seeing and nobody wants to talk about. But has anybody noticed ever since we started really fighting for rights of anybody to be male or female, that we've actually started to see all men start to say that there's this thing that we never even would have mentioned 20 years ago called misandry, and we're starting to see this thing mentioned, especially by black women, that they aren't even being treated as women, and that now trans women are supposed to be treated as
What
regular
does
women.
misandry mean?
Misandry, so you got misogyny that's against women, misandry is against men.
Oh, okay.
So you never would have heard anybody even mentioning we need men's rights 20 years
Oh
ago. But
gosh.
why do people mention it now?
Well,
Because, and it's some of it you can say is foolish, I get, right? But because, like, why did Joe Rogan get popular? Why is certain people, why did like Kevin Samuels get popular? It's because that there's this thing.
reverse sexism.
Well, it's reverse sexism, I get it. But at the
Well,
same
I'm
time,
just laughing. I'm just like,
no, I'm just saying I get it, like reverse sexism. However, there's a lot of guys who for decades have been feeling certain things, and then all of a sudden we got to a certain place where it's like a guy to be masculine now is toxic. Like, of course, there's gonna be guys that say like they're guys. We've watched some of them, some of these women who just straight pander, whatever. Some of these men that straight pander.
mhm.
However, there's a lot of guys out there because we acted for the longest time. Men didn't have emotions. Men didn't care. Men didn't need to be spoken to. Men didn't need to be respected. You just go out there and you grind or whatever. You ain't a real man because you showing that you actually are emotional and blah blah. And eventually, like brothers started saying like no, just like women have been telling us no for a long time, and it's reached a breaking point to where now like brothers are actually starting to have to say like, yo, we something as simple as just getting out on, and I'll give brothers credit, it's still not what it needs to be, but you're seeing a lot more men coming out and being like, hey, black women, we're sorry. Like, black women, you're right. Like, black women, you don't need to say, you don't even have to say it. Like, we're going to come at the men that are saying this foolishness as far as they high value and like,
Mhm.
we're sorry, we need to get this under wraps. But the same thing's now crashing with men, where it's like, they're looking for a champion too. And you have all these guys that are growing overnight because it's like, yeah, like nobody's been saying, hey, he has emotions too. Hey, he needs to hear respect too. Hey, he has a heart too, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
You know?
Well, it's like that whole like unconditional love argument. People come up with these agendas and these talking points, and they don't even think them through themselves. Like the whole feminism thing, really is like one of the most idiotic uh, standpoints ever, because really they allowed the tables to be turned on them so far to where it put women at such a disadvantage, and it's just like taking us further and further and further. Like now feminism encompasses men, who decide that they're going to
Right.
choose to be women, or and be counted. And now it's like to the point where you can turn on, you know, primetime TV and see a man beating the crap out of a woman in a boxing ring or MMA fight, and oh, that's acceptable. Or a biological man whipping women in a swimming pool race, making all sorts of records, and that's acceptable because of feminism. Like,
Well,
and I'm
it's,
not pandering to men. Like I've always thought feminism was an idiotic idea.
but no, I was just gonna say real quick that it's like an NAACP piece. And what I mean by that is the NAACP, until what, a year or 2 years ago, every president over the whole NAACP, not talking about different chapters, but the whole NAACP, until like a year or 2 years ago, it had always been a white guy over it. So how are you advancing colored people if everybody, and a lot of them are people that, like, if you mention their names, these are tycoons, right? However, and it's the same thing. Now you have this feminism piece, and it's the same thing. Now you're letting men be
Dictate
the leaders,
dictate what it is to be a
just
woman.
like men are leading. Like, I don't like it, by the way. I talk about it all the time because it doesn't make sense to me. How are men leading in women's fashion? Like, it doesn't make sense. And these are men that aren't attracted, supposedly, aren't attracted to you, right? And are telling you though what you need to wear to make sure that you attract straight men. It does. It's a lot of weird stuff.
Well, it's like it's like wake up, open your eyes, and look at what's happening. Because to me, like women are always talking about how much smarter they are than men, but if
Mm.
you look at the world, like the patriarchy has been in place for a long time, and all these but with the patriarchy in place, women actually had um decent roles, and they could they can maneuver, they could do what they want, and they were protected in those roles, and they were they were thought to that they need to be taken care of and things like that. Nowadays, women out here struggling, taking care of themselves. Meanwhile, they're having to cook, clean. Like they become maids and prostitutes and getting no money. Like I mean, if you look at these quote unquote relationships that people are having, like how is it? I don't even want to know. But women out here, they're strong, independent. They got their girlfriends. They have a guy who might come hit it up once in a while, and they got to pay their own bills. They got to look out for themselves. Um, they they just got to take care of themselves. And if they get into some type of relationship, they're cooking and cleaning and having babies for people who aren't even claiming them. So how is that better than it was before? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just maybe it's just me. Maybe I just don't see how sitting out in the streets, taking your shirt off, burning your bra benefits women. Like to me, I was like, dang, these women got tricked into being outside naked. The same men that they're like protesting against, they're showing them their naked breasts. Like, what is that? What like who's the smarter ones? I don't know. I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
don't know if
Like,
it's smart. I don't know if it's smart. I think it's like we're talking about just rising, like misdirection. Like you can get somebody like a magician can legitimately sometimes show you the trick,
yeah.
and you will see what he's doing. And because he's done one thing with his hand or said something that made you laugh when he moved his hand, you will see exactly what happened and still not believe your eyes. And go for something different, and it's a lot of that where like for like basically it's. And I'm not saying, like for example, women's right to vote. First of all, y'all know how I feel about voting. I can care less about voting. But let me just say, like, I'm not trying to reverse the 19th Amendment, right? I think that's the correct one,
Mm-hmm.
19th Amendment or anything like that. However, right, like there's certain things that you don't need to fight your way out of. Like there's certain things as a man that I don't need to fight my way out of. Like I'm not trying to fight my way. Like I think it's foolish for men, and I know this is extreme. However, it's it's not my goal to fight for my right to make sure that I can try to have a baby someday.
Mm.
I've seen women do it. I'm comfortable with y'all. you know, Having that or whatever, like let that be your box. Like it's not my goal to try and make sure that I lay down the law. I'm cool with giving instruction. And if mine lays down the law, so this is what we got to. Sorry, if I'm gonna
That's
lays down
fine.
the law and it says this is what we got to do to make sure that we do it, okay. Like I'm cool with it, right? Like that's her responsibility. If um she's the main teacher as far as Solomon's homeschooling and stuff. So if she says, hey, Kofi, you need to do this and this right on your end to help me out, blah blah whatever, like I need to figure out the way to make it happen, right? That's what it is. If she's if there's certain things where she's like financially, hey, look, I know it might be a rough patch, this and that or whatever, but you need to take care of da right now. Like we need it. Guess what? Like, okay, like I need to follow those instructions. At that time, I submit myself to her mission and stuff too. We're supposed to submit ourselves one to another, and that should be okay. And she should feel like protected in that, even if we have, sometimes just like any couple, we have, rocky times, whatever. However, like she should know, even in the midst of that, I'm still going to make sure, right? Like if such and such bill needs to be paid, okay. Like if I need to still take out this trash or do this or whatever, okay. If I still need to take our son to the park, okay. Like if I still like she should know, all right, in the midst of that, like she should be secure in her role. And I think that's the biggest okey doke is both sides are arguing to come outside of roles, or at least, and when I say come outside of roles, people get irritated because they think I'm saying a woman can't have her own business. Like, no, look up the Proverbs 31 woman, business owner, right? Like they're thinking I'm saying a woman can't preach. No, look up the woman at the well. Look up when Yahshua came back from the dead. Look at Esther. Look at like we can give you, look at all these different women throughout the history. Like, of course, a woman can preach. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's okay for a woman to have certain roles that I should not touch. Because watch this, if I can't touch it, it means that I also must protect it.
And once you touch it, you become responsible for it.
Exactly.
So
So
like, why do you
so
want
I
that?
so I yeah, so there's certain things that I want to be protected. And there's certain things as a man that shouldn't be touched either. So that I can protect it and also I can feel protected. She will protect it because if she because here's the deal, right? Like this is just fair as fair. Hopefully y'all get what I'm saying in this. If she um can't touch it or whatever, then why should anybody else touch it? So she probably protect it more, right? And if I can't touch it, then why should anybody else touch it? So I'll probably protect it more. So there's certain things that we have, no matter what anybody says. There's certain things as far as what people call first lady responsibilities and all that we talk behind the scenes. And I've been like, I don't care what anybody else as a first lady is or whatever. Like I'm not here to entertain what anybody else says because they're not my first lady. Matter of fact, I used to say it like this: I don't have a first lady, I have the only lady. Right? That's what we, I used to say that, when we were in public, as far as like, in front of people, often. Right. And I meant it. And that's like, so I'm not worried about what somebody else has to say about my relationship because we decided what it is. And I've decided, okay, let me make sure she feels secure in that. And I'm going to try and protect her in that. And when she sees that, she says, okay, cool. And and what happens is the great thing is now she goes, okay, like you protected me in mine. Like, of course, I'm going to protect you in yours. And we got each other's back. So even if we like, and there gonna be times we have a rough patch, have a argument, whatever couples do. Right after that, she'll be like, "Oh, okay, babe. Hey, that thing that you said you needed help with in the middle of the argument, like I got you. What do you think about it?" And I'll be doing the same. Hey, okay, like. Do you still? Hey, I'm going to the store. Or I'm going to do this or blah blah. Do you want this? Do you want this? Blah blah. Whatever. Like, tell me what you need. Hey, do you still need, you were saying that I didn't do this and that or whatever, do you need me to figure out a way to make it happen? I don't know when it'll happen, but as soon as I got the money, as soon as I got the time, whatever, I promise you, first thing I'm doing is coming to you. So what exactly do you need? It's because like we've, even in the midst of us being not being as on, because we're still on one accord really, but as in one accord as we normally would be, we still have each other's back because her role has to be protected. And so the second I don't do what it is that she's asking for, thank you for the love. So the second I'm not doing it, I'm not protecting her and she's not protecting me. And so if we got back, that's one of the most diabolical things that ever happened is that we've actually argued our way out of protected roles. You argue your way out of a role. How do you protect somebody? Real talk. Like when those of us in the military, if you ever done any kind of security, I don't care what kind of security, those of us in the military, you have specific roles. You have specific directives. You have a specific agenda. You have a specific thing. You know that if somebody, there's certain places, if they step past the line, like you've been given directives sometimes, like if they step past this line, you are allowed to go ahead and unholster your weapon. Right, like you have certain things, like you've been given specific roles, very specific. I've done gate guard duty before, and you go through and you're supposed to look at a truck and this and that. If you see anything on the truck that looks close to this and that or whatever, you go ahead and you make sure that you treat it like a bomb. Like there's a certain role that I have at every gate when I did gate guard duty, whether it was here, whether it was overseas, right? Or if we were at battle, whatever it was, at the end of the day, we had certain roles. If you run in point, your role is a lot different, right, than if you ain't. So if you're gonna be running point, you better have your role together. Like whatever it is, you better make sure that you're in position, no
and
matter
being in
what.
position provided security and protection. Like when we are out of our roles, there is no protection for us. There's like it makes us weak. Like being a woman and being nurturing and doing the things that a woman does makes a woman quote unquote strong, puts her in her element. When she steps out of her element, she gotta work 2 jobs, she gotta take care of kids, she gotta do all this stuff. She becomes weak because she's tired. And if a man steps out of his role and just doing whatever, he gets, he becomes weak because he just doesn't know what he's supposed to do. He becomes restless. He may become violent. He just doesn't know what he's supposed to do himself. And since a man has to do something because their energy is active energy, women's energy is supposed to be passive energy. A man's gonna figure out something to do, even if it's the wrong thing to do. So that's why we're seeing a lot of.
Well, like I'm sorry to interrupt you because I know I just went on and on. I just wanted to say, like, because you've taught this before in I forget which class.
Natural medicine.
Is either natural medicine, might have been, well, yeah, because some of them flow together. So you probably done a couple of them. But like in natural medicine too, you talk about how when the man's watching a football game, you gave us that reminder of like when he watches it, he doesn't have to play the game and he gets testosterone, and there's certain things like when a woman's watching, right? Like she'll get estrogen from. And if you're doing something as a woman that's outside your role, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the herbalist. If you're doing something that's outside your role as a woman, and you get it's actually testosterone. You're doing something outside that feeds the testosterone piece, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually going to make yourself more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I, as a guy, like a lot of people, guys think that, oh, okay, I'm going to get bigger and stronger, so I'm going to take testosterone. No, testosterone will actually eventually put you at peace. Like a man who's peaceful, he has a lot of testosterone. He has high testosterone level. If a woman who's very peaceful, or you might even say a man or woman who's passive, right? They'll have too much. So a woman who's peaceful, she'll have estrogen. If she wants to get stronger, she's got to take testosterone. If a man wants to get stronger, he actually has to take estrogen because it puts him out of balance, therefore making him more aggressive, therefore telling his body, I need to, work out or do whatever.
Well, it's like we talk about that balance and that harmony of the body, and you're gonna see, and you see it now. If you look up the statistics on prostate cancer, on diseases of the sexual organs, because when a man is not acting like a man, when a man is not isn't in his correct role, it throws off his spirit, his mental, and his physical, and his hormones are all over the place because he doesn't know what to do with himself, and he starts acting like a I don't want to say that word, but he starts acting like a bitch basically, and he doesn't know what to do with himself. And a woman who's out of her place, she starts having all these different reproductive problems, endometriosis, fibroids, cysts, cervical cancer, all these things because she's being thrown off because she's not in her nature. She's acting like a man. She's out here fighting and being aggressive and trying to compete and succeed, and those are not feminine qualities. Like a woman is by nature supposed to be cooperative and collaborative.
Wow,
and
you just said something powerful though about the compete piece.
We work better in that way, and we function better in that way, and it's very, very stressful. It wears a woman out when she feels that though she has to compete all the time, like not just in her work world but her physical world, with her friends, with her family. She's always in this like constant struggle against herself because that is not her role. A woman's role is to be passive, agreeable, cooperative, community oriented. A man's role is to compete, to succeed, to achieve, and we're supposed to complement each other. But if you're out there, like as a woman, competing with a man, you're going to be very frustrated because the end result is not going to make you satisfied. And a lot of women are realizing that, the ones who, you know, run the, like I know people who ran big large airports, became generals, became top of their line, and they are depressed beyond measure because they achieved these things that were outside of their nature, outside of what their purpose in life and their role was. And so they achieve these things, but when they get there, they realize it wasn't for them, but it's too late to go back. It's too late to reverse things, and it's like there's kind of like no going back at some point. And you know, we see this imbalance in our community too, where black women, myself included, are more like white men than like black women. We don't know how to be, a lot of times don't know how to be feminine, don't know how to submit, don't know how to be cooperative. And so there's a lot of disharmony within our households and our families, a whole lot.
Would you say, I've never thought about this because you said that quite a bit, right? As far as black women act like white men.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that black men act like white women?
Yes. And they're always compared. If you look at TV,
I've never thought about that before.
If you look at TV, black men are always placed with white women or subordinate to white women. If you look at TV shows, movies, it's the new voice of authority is a white woman, followed by a black man. And white men and women are always being compared to black men, and black women are always being compared to white men.
Well, the interesting thing is, because whenever you want something to be done and the black community get on board, you actually find a black woman. Or if a white man wants black people to do something, he goes and he gets a black woman, right? And if white women want to get something to get done, they go and get a black man nowadays. Like if there's a feminist movement, some of the biggest, strongest speakers on their behalf, they're going to find black men. Whether it's like a D.L. Hughley, a Terry Crews.
It's an agenda.
In a sense, even as much as everybody hates him, Dave Chappelle, you're going to find a black man to make sure he talks about how feminist he is and how he should be okay with being effeminate. and how you should get over certain things or whatever, and you'll get rappers,
And you're
like
not
young
black enough. You're not down with the Black Lives Matter and the LGBTQ community. You're not black if you're not supporting that. And then, you know, we just saw Jurassic Park, and there was two couples in there. Both couples were white, and then there were two single black people. The black man was effeminate. He was very intelligent and all that. He was a high up role, but he was basically almost like the wife of a white man in the movie.
he
And
basically
then
he basically plays
he
his
played the
wife.
wife.
He's not supposed to be gay,
No, he's not
but he
supposed to be.
basically is supposed to be the white bad guys, basically like right hand
Crony, yeah.
man.
And then the black woman in there is extremely strong. She's kick ass. She's a lesbian. She was in the military. She takes care of herself and she takes care of everybody else in the movie. And at one point, she says I can basically she says I can relate to this main white character. She's talking to him. She goes, because I like redheads too, meaning that she likes women too. And not that she is a woman. She can clearly do everything a man can do. She is a man. Um, and you see all the action scenes with the black woman just being like very very heroic and very masculine in her nature. She's saving herself and the black and the white man and the white woman at some point in the movie. And then at some point they um show that she's into women herself. She's not a woman. She's into women, and she's basically a white man. And this is the type of movie that's out right now. These are the types of messages that we're being subconsciously fed, especially children are being subconsciously fed that um, our communities. This is our roles. Our role as a black woman is to be a white man. You look at office situations, you'll see black women and white men. Um, if you look at and you look at the statistics of people who are the most educated. Of course, black women are the most educated, but we're the most underpaid. So guess where our place is, in the workplace. Meanwhile, somebody else is raising the black children, because where is the black mother, and then where's the black father if he's not in the house? In a lot of situations, uh, who's raising the children? Uh,
I agree. I don't really have anything else to add.
yeah, I broke my flower.
You broke your
I
flower.
had a dried flower in my phone
Mm.
case, and I've been playing around with my phone case, and ended up breaking my dried flower. I'll get another one,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to add? Though?
no, I think we covered the gamut of my little soapbox. I don't know.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being on. We appreciate it. Uh, Thanks for spending time with us tonight. We have early rise of Bible study tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. Eastern New York time. Minister Nice will be teaching to finish up the month, and then after.
What is that?
Oh wow,
It's
okay. I
cute.
never seen
What
that
is
one
that?
before. I don't know.
Oh,
It's too.
I like to take screenshots.
It was what, a sun and a flower dancing or
Yeah.
something like that, or a flower and something else dancing. But thank you. We appreciate the love. Thanks for being on, everybody. Um, so we'll see you guys tomorrow for that. It will be on live again tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern New York time, 8 p.m. Eastern New York time, and 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time for those that have Hebrew characters. So thank you so much. Again, we honor the King and Queen in each and every one of you. And tonight, we had the special treat of having the Honorable Maya or the Honorable Alma on. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And the tincture of the month is
Glowing, glowing skin blend.
Glowing Skin
It's a
Blend.
mixture of hibiscus, chickweed.
I don't remember the third one.
Either right this second. This is chickweed and mulberry.
And mulberry. amongst other tinctures that she has available for you all. We thank you. We appreciate you. We are excited. Please study this word, meditate on it, so you can be hearers of it and doers simultaneously. And we give all praise and honor to Yahweh. So thank you, everybody, for being on. And as always, for these special sessions, this has been the Honorable Amma and myself, Pastor Kofi. We are over servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until we have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, Yashtel, that you are loved, you are necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.